Hi, this is Melanie Fine of RocketGirls.com. I wanted to talk to you today about another difference between male and female scientists. Realize when I talk about this, I'm talking about generalizations, but studies have shown that women scientists tend to be, on average, more ethical than male scientists. And ethical in the sense that women make sure, in general, that all their I's are dotted and all their T's are crossed. They want to make sure they have all the data finished, completed, and everything is checked, a gazillion times before they go to publish. Men, on the other hand, tend to be more competitive and want to make sure they are first to publish, first to be out there. And I can't think of a more prime example of this than the race to find the shape of the DNA molecule, the double helix. Rosalind Franklin, as we know, was the X-ray crystallographer in England at the time who was taking pictures using an X-ray crystallograph of the DNA molecule. She was doing both the A form and the B form, and she was taking measurements. She carefully took these pictures. She took some of the most beautiful pictures of any X-ray crystallographer in the world, and she was actually measuring the length of the bonds between the base pairs, and had these things, I think it was something like 0.34 angstrom between base pair. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong. But she took pains to make sure that all her calculations were exact and completed. And what she didn't know was that she was in a race. She was not part of this race. She didn't know there was a race to find the shape of DNA. She was doing her best science. That's what Rosalind Franklin was doing. But Watson and Crick, especially James Watson, snuck into, well, he didn't really sneak into her lab at that time. He had snuck into her lab in the past, but actually Maurice Wilkins, who worked with Rosalind Franklin, showed James Watson her photo 51 of the DNA molecule without her permission, without her knowledge, and actually showed her the measurements. And then James Watson took those measurements and immediately, like the same week or a weekend later, worked with Francis Crick in developing a ball and metal model of the double helix of DNA, and they rushed to make sure their model was published in Nature magazine, and it was published, I think, in the year 1953. I could be wrong, but they raced to. I just got a low power signal, so I'll talk quickly. They raced to make sure that their name was on this discovery, and they didn't credit that picture of Rosalind Franklin's, that photograph that they used to find that. They did, in some ways, give her credit somewhere backwards in the article. They allowed her to publish an article alongside it. But I'm not sure in Rosalind Franklin's entire life that she ever knew that her photograph was the linchpin that created that discovery, that sealed it for them. Because Rosalind Franklin was in her job as a scientist, taking her measurements, doing everything exactly, not rushing to print. She wasn't an engineer, she was a scientist. She wasn't looking to be the most famous scientist, she was looking to do the best work. So people have faulted Rosalind Franklin over the years because maybe she wasn't quick to publish or she didn't publish. But you know what? She wasn't ready to publish. Hi Denise, hi Tammy, I'm seeing Julie, Katz, Arshansky, I'm seeing all my friends here. She wasn't ready to publish. She hadn't finished her science. So these people who fault her, I mean, how did Watson and Crick figure out the shape of the DNA? Well, Rosalind Franklin's photograph helped them. They were competitive, they were in a race. Rosalind Franklin was doing good science. And I would imagine that James Watson was so, had guilt about this his entire life. In fact, it wasn't until he was much older that he actually went back and sort of went backwards and re-stepped and paused and rethought what he did and gave her more credit in his later life. Rosalind Franklin wasn't even there when they received the Nobel Prize, and when he wrote the book The Double Helix, she had already passed away to ovarian cancer. She passed away at the age of 35 or 37, very young, tragically. But even in his book The Double Helix, which was written many years after her passing, he described her as selfish, mean, an old maid, someone who you could not work with. And of course he needed to attribute these characteristics to Rosie, as he called her, to justify him stealing her work. Rosalind Franklin didn't do that. There are studies that say that women are more ethical in science than men. They're not as competitive as men are. Another reason we need more women in science, we need to make sure that all our I's are dotted and all our T's are crossed, and we don't rush to conclusions. I really hope that if you have a high school girl who loves science, that you register for this webinar that I have going on right now. It's the 5 steps that you need to know to make sure that your high school daughter who loves science succeeds in science. Register for the webinar, and I'll see you there. Thank you for watching. Again, this is Melanie Fine of RocketGirls.com.